Keep an eye on my wife tonight." Grant Holloway said it without looking at me, as if he were asking me to check the catering bill. We were standing beside a marble column in the ballroom of the Belmont Hotel, surrounded by 200 employees, clients, investors, and spouses dressed like they had never spilled anything on themselves in their lives. I thought I had misheard him. Then Grant adjusted his cufflink and added, "If Claire leaves the room, I want to know where she goes. If she talks to anyone from the Porter Group, text me. Don't make it obvious." Across the ballroom, Claire Holloway was standing near the band with a champagne glass she hadn't touched. And she was looking straight at me. Not glancing. Looking. It was the 4th time I had caught her watching me since dinner. I had no idea then that my boss had just asked me to spy on his wife, or that his wife had spent the entire night deciding whether I was the one person in the room she could trust. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know what you would have done in my place. Would you obey the man who signs your paycheck, or refuse the moment his request crossed a line? If stories about difficult choices and second chances mean something to you, stay with me. My name is Ethan Cole. I was 30 years old that winter, a senior operations manager for Holloway Hospitality in Nashville, Tennessee. I had worked there for almost 6 years, long enough to know which vendors could save an event at midnight, which clients needed reassurance instead of solutions, and exactly how quiet a room became when Grant Holloway was angry. I was good at my job because I liked order. After a relationship ended badly 3 years earlier, order became more than a preference. It became protection. Work gave me schedules, budgets, deadlines, measurable problems. People were harder. I kept my apartment clean, my friendships uncomplicated, and my heart out of any situation that looked like it could become a mess. Claire was 26, exactly 4 years younger than me, and until that night, I knew almost nothing about her beyond what everyone at the company knew. She was Grant's wife. She attended major events. She smiled for photos. She wore beautiful clothes without ever seeming impressed by them. And lately, according to office gossip I tried not to listen to, she and Grant had been arriving separately. The party was our company's 15th anniversary celebration, the kind of night Grant treated like a campaign. He had filled the Belmont's top floor with employees, clients, investors, music, and a polished display of the company's history. Grant was 44, controlled, and famous for never needing to raise his voice. I respected what he had built. I also knew better than to confuse competence with kindness, so when he told me to watch Claire, my first instinct was the one 6 years under him had trained into me. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Grant finally looked at me. "There doesn't need to be." That answer told me enough. "I'm running operations tonight," I said. "I may need to move around, then move around near her." He gave my shoulder one short pat and walked away toward a cluster of investors before I could answer. I stood there holding a glass of sparkling water, feeling like someone had quietly moved the floor beneath my feet. That was when I looked back at Claire. She was still watching me. This time, when our eyes met, she did something unexpected. She smiled. Not the public smile I had seen in company photographs. This one was small and tired and almost amused, as if she knew exactly what Grant had just said to me. Then she turned towards the band and disappeared into a circle of guests. I told myself to return to work. For 20 minutes I did. I checked vendors, fixed a seating issue, and solved a dessert problem. But every few minutes, against my better judgment, I found Claire again. She was not doing anything suspicious. She spoke to guests, helped a server gather dropped forks, and stood alone near a window. Sooner or later, her eyes always came back to mine. It made me uncomfortable for reasons I did not want to name. Claire was beautiful. Dark blonde hair, gray-green eyes, a deep blue dress, and I was irritated with myself for noticing. Boss's wife, married woman, complicated. 3 excellent reasons to keep my attention on work. At 9:15, Claire left the ballroom. I saw her slip through the side doors toward the terrace corridor. I also saw Grant across the room, deep in conversation with 2 investors. His earlier instructions sat in my head like a stone. If Claire leaves the room, I want to know where she goes. I could have texted him from where I stood. Instead, I put my phone in my pocket and waited 30 seconds. Then I followed her. I told myself I was only making sure she was all right. The terrace doors were open to the cold night air. Nashville glittered beyond the railing, all glass towers and ribbons of traffic. Claire stood at the far end beneath a heater, both hands resting on the stone ledge. She did not turn when I approached. "You took longer than I expected," she said. I stopped. "Excuse me?" Now she looked over her shoulder. "He told you to follow me, didn't he? There are moments when lying feels childish before you even try it." I exhaled. "He told me to keep an eye on you." Claire nodded once, as if confirming a private bet. "And you did. I came out here because you left the party. That sounds very much like keeping an eye on me." Her tone was not angry. That somehow made it worse. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have refused." "Yes." The word landed cleanly. I almost laughed because I deserved it. Claire looked back toward the skyline. "But you didn't text him." I frowned. "How do you know?" "Because if you had, he would have appeared within a minute pretending he needed fresh air." I studied her profile. "You seem very sure." "I've had practice." That was the first crack in the perfect picture. I leaned against the opposite side of the stone ledge, leaving several feet between us. "Why were you watching me all night?" Her eyes shifted to mine. So she knew I had noticed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "I was deciding something. About me?" "Yes, that is not a comforting answer." A quiet laugh escaped her. It was the first sound from her that seemed completely unplanned. "I was trying to decide whether you were like the rest of them." "The rest of who?" "People who become whatever Grant needs when he looks at them." I did not answer. She continued. "I watched him send 3 different people across this room tonight. One to move a client away from someone he didn't like. One to tell the photographer which couples not to include. Then he spoke to you, and you assumed I was another employee he could point somewhere." I didn't assume. Claire held my gaze. I watched to see. The cold air moved between us. "What did you decide?" I asked. "That you hate what he asked you to do?" I looked away because she was right. "That doesn't mean I won't do it." "No," she said, "but it means you know the difference. I should have left then." Instead, I asked the question that pulled me deeper into everything. "What are you afraid he thinks you're going to do?" Claire's expression changed. Not dramatically. Her shoulders simply lowered a fraction, as if she had been carrying something heavy and had finally decided to set one corner of it down. "I'm going to leave the party before he gives his speech," she said. "That's it?" "That's enough. Why?" "Because the speech is about us." I glanced toward the ballroom doors. Claire gave a bitter smile. "He's going to thank me for standing beside him through 15 years of building the company." "But you're 26. 6, exactly." I blinked. She looked down at her hands. "The company existed before I met him, but the story he tells now is that I came into his life at the beginning of his expansion, that we built the newest properties together, that our marriage represents stability. Investors love a stable founder. Clients love a family story. I had heard Grant tell versions of that story. I had never done the math." Claire continued quietly. "We have been separated for 11 weeks. I stared at her. The ballroom music drifted through the open doors behind us. Separated? I moved into my sister's guest house in September. No one at work knew. Or if they did, they had hidden it better than office gossip usually hid anything. Then why are you here? Because Grant asked me to attend 3 final company events while our attorneys worked out the terms. He said a public split before the financing round closed would create unnecessary questions. I agreed to 2. Tonight was supposed to be the last. And now he wants me to watch you. Because this afternoon I told him I would not stand beside him during the speech and pretend we were happily married. Suddenly the entire night looked different. Her separate arrival, Grant's tension, the way she kept watching me. You think he'll stop you from leaving? I asked. Claire gave me a careful look. Not physically. The distinction made my stomach tighten. He will make it difficult, she said. He'll send someone to persuade me. He'll create a scene where the only way not to embarrass everyone is to do what he wants. Grant is very good at arranging the room, so that saying no feels like you're the one causing trouble. I knew exactly what she meant. I had seen him do it in meetings. I had never imagined living inside that method. What do you need from me? I asked. Claire was quiet for several seconds. Then she said, Nothing. If you're asking because you think you're supposed to rescue me, I'm not. Good. She turned toward the doors, then stopped. But if you're asking because you don't want to be used as his messenger, then I need one thing. What? When I leave, don't lie for him. I frowned. I don't understand. He may tell people I'm upset, unstable, drinking too much, having some kind of episode. He has done smaller versions of that before. I'm not asking you to take my side. I'm asking you to tell the truth if anyone asks what you saw. What truth? That I was calm. That I walked out on my own. That no one took me anywhere. It was such a simple request that it made the situation feel more serious. I can do that, I said. Claire looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. That's what I hoped. You watched me all night just to decide if I would tell the truth? Mostly. Mostly? Her eyes warmed for half a second. You also looked like the only person in that room who wanted to be there less than I did. I laughed before I could stop myself. That was the first moment the tension changed. Not into romance, but recognition between 2 people tired of performing obedience. Claire went back inside first. I waited another minute, then followed. For the next 40 minutes, I did my job and nothing else. I did not hover near her. I did not report to Grant. When he caught my eye once from across the room and lifted his eyebrows in a silent question, I gave him a neutral nod that meant nothing. At 10, the band stopped. Grant walked to the stage. The room quieted. Claire stood near the back. Grant moved smoothly through the company's history until he said, and none of this would mean much without the people who stand beside us when the work gets hard. My attention snapped to Claire. So did hers to mine. Grant smiled toward the back of the ballroom. My wife, Claire? Claire turned and walked out. No rush. No drama. Just a woman in a blue dress picking up a small coat from the back of a chair and leaving through the side doors, while 200 people were looking towards the stage. A ripple moved through the room. Grant stopped speaking for less than 2 seconds. Then he recovered. Claire has never enjoyed being the center of attention, he said with a light laugh. People laughed with him because that was what people did when powerful men gave them permission. I did not. Grant finished his speech 3 minutes later. The second he stepped off stage, he came directly to me. Where did she go? I don't know. His expression hardened. I told you to watch her. I saw her leave. And she left. Alone? Yes. Which door? Grant. It was the first time in 6 years I had used his first name at work. He noticed. So did I. I'm running an event, I said. I'm not tracking your wife. His eyes went still. For a moment the ballroom disappeared around us. Then Grant smiled. It was the kind of smile that had no warmth in it at all. Of course, he said. We'll discuss it Monday. He walked away. My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. Monday was not going to be a discussion. I got home after midnight and slept badly. Sunday afternoon, Claire texted me after finding my number in the company directory. Thank you for not turning my exit into a chase. I answered, You didn't need my permission to leave. Her reply came quickly. You'd be surprised how strange it feels to hear someone say that. I put my phone face down and cleaned my kitchen because that was easier than examining why the sentence hurt. Monday morning, Grant called me into his office at 8:10. He did not offer coffee. He did not ask how my weekend had been. Close the door, he said. I did. He sat behind a wide walnut desk with the city framed perfectly behind him. You embarrassed me Saturday. I handled the event. You ignored a direct request. Your request had nothing to do with the event. Grant leaned back. You're becoming very principled all of a sudden. The insult was quiet, which made it sharper. I'm trying to be clear about what my job is. Your job is to protect this company. From what? Your wife leaving a party? His jaw tightened. I knew I had gone too far, but I did not take it back. Grant folded his hands. Claire is emotional right now. She is making decisions she may regret. She seemed calm to me. That was when he realized she had spoken to me. His eyes narrowed. How long were you with her outside? About 10 minutes. What did she tell you? That's not your business. He actually laughed. Not loudly. Just one disbelieving breath. Everything involving my wife is my business. There it was, the sentence that made something settle inside me. No, I said. It isn't. Silence. Grant's face did not change, but I watched the temperature leave the room. You're up for regional director in March, he said after a moment. I knew exactly what he was doing. The promotion would mean a 30% raise, travel, a better title, and enough money to finally buy the house I had been quietly saving for. I know. I would hate for one night of poor judgment to affect how ready you seem for that responsibility. I felt anger, but beneath it, something worse. Fear. Because the threat worked. He knew what I wanted. He knew I had built my adult life around being dependable, and with one sentence he had reminded me that he could make 6 years of work feel temporary. I need to get back downstairs, I said. Grant nodded as if the conversation had ended exactly where he wanted it. At the door, he added, And Ethan? I looked back. Stay away from Claire. I left without answering. For the rest of that day, I could barely focus. I wanted to text Claire, but Grant's order made even that choice feel contaminated. So I waited. Claire texted me Wednesday. I owe you an apology. I pulled you into something that could hurt your job. I answered before I could overthink it. You didn't tell him to assign me as your guard. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. No. But I knew he might. That surprised me. What do you mean? Her reply took longer. Coffee? Public place. Daylight. I'll explain once, then you can decide whether you want any further contact with me. Every cautious part of me said no. I agreed anyway. We met Saturday morning at a bakery in East Nashville. It was crowded enough to feel safe and ordinary. Claire wore jeans, boots, and a gray sweater. Without the formal dress and company setting, she looked younger. Not immature, just less armored. She had already bought coffee when I arrived. I didn't know what you drank, she said, so I got you nothing. It felt less controlling. I stared at her for 1 second, then laughed. She smiled. Too soon? Maybe. But accurate. I ordered coffee and sat across from her. Claire took a breath. I knew Grant would choose someone to watch me at the party. Why me? I didn't know it would be you. But you were watching me before he talked to me. Yes. She wrapped both hands around her cup. Last year there was an incident at the Franklin property. A banquet server slipped near the service stairs. I remembered it immediately. A young employee named Melissa had broken her wrist. The floor had been wet because a freezer line had leaked. A supervisor tried to blame her shoes. You gave a statement, Claire said. You said management had been warned about the leak 2 days earlier. How do you know that? I saw the insurance correspondence. Grant was furious with you. He got over it. No. He decided you were too useful to punish. That sounded more believable. Claire continued. I remembered your name. At the party, when I realized Grant was tense about me leaving, I started watching the people he trusts most. You were the only one who looked uncomfortable before he even finished talking to you. So I passed a character test I didn't know I was taking. Barely. I smiled, despite myself. Then her expression became serious. I was not looking for an ally against my husband. I have a lawyer. I have my sister. I have friends Grant doesn't like but cannot erase. I don't need you to fight him. Then why are we here? Because he threatened your promotion, didn't he? My silence answered. Claire looked down. I'm sorry. How did you know? That's how he handles resistance. He finds the thing a person values and puts his hand near it. Usually he doesn't even have to take it away. The description was so precise it made me uncomfortable. What happened between you two? I asked, then immediately regretted it. You don't have to answer that. No, it's fair. Claire looked toward the window. I met Grant at 22, when my college roommate and I had a small floral design business. He hired us for a hotel launch. He was charming and certain, and back then I thought certainty was strength. We married when I was 24. Later he convinced me to fold my business into Holloway Hospitality. At first I got bigger clients. Then my designs became company designs, my clients became company clients, and eventually I stopped designing and started appearing at openings. What did he call that? I asked. Evolution. And you? Disappearing politely. The phrase stayed with me. I understood why she had left the speech. What are you going to do now? I've rented a tiny studio in Germantown. For floral work? She nodded. I signed the lease yesterday. I'm starting over under a new name. Something in her face changed when she said it. Fear was still there, but it was carrying excitement now. What name? Second Light Studio. That's good. You don't even know what it means. I don't need to. It sounds like you chose it. Claire looked at me for a second too long. Then she smiled. That may be the nicest thing anyone has said to me all week. We talked for another hour, mostly about ourselves instead of Grant. I told her my mother had managed a motel outside Knoxville, and that my last serious relationship ended after I chose a Nashville promotion over moving with the woman I thought I would marry. What did you learn? Claire asked. That I'm very good at choosing the option that cannot reject me. That sounds lonely. It's efficient. She laughed. The conversation was easy in a way that worried me. There was chemistry. I knew it. She knew it. But neither of us touched it. When we stood to leave, Claire said, I need to be clear about something. Okay. My marriage is ending. But it is not over yet, I know. I don't want you to become the explanation for why I left. I don't want that either, and I don't want to use you as a bridge from one life to another. I nodded. Then we agree. She looked relieved. We walked outside together and stopped on the sidewalk. Friends? She asked. I hesitated. Careful, friends. Claire smiled. That sounds like you. For the next month, careful mostly worked. We traded occasional harmless texts. Once Claire sent a picture of 6 empty buckets in her unfinished studio with the message, "My empire." I replied, "Impressive, needs more buckets." At work, Grant became professionally polite. He removed me from executive meetings, reassigned a project I had led for months, and stopped mentioning the promotion. I told myself I did not care. That was a lie. I had earned it, and losing it made integrity feel expensive. Claire sensed something was wrong before I told her. One evening she called. "You sound tired," she'd said. "I'm fine. That answer should be illegal." I smiled, despite myself. Long week. Because of me? Because of Grant? Silence. Then she said, "I can stop contacting you." The speed of the offer hurt more than I expected. "Is that what you want?" No. The honesty in her voice changed the air between us, even through the phone. "Then don't make decisions for me," I said. She was quiet. "I'm learning not to," she replied. That sentence stayed with me, too. In December, Second Light's studio opened for a small holiday pop-up. Claire invited me along with about 40 other people. I almost did not go. Then I realized avoiding her, because Grant might disapprove, was still a form of letting Grant direct my life. So I went. The studio had concrete floors, exposed brick, mismatched tables, and none of Holloway's polished perfection. Claire moved through it in an apron, laughing with customers and carrying buckets. I had never seen her look so alive. "You came," she said when she saw me. "You invited me. I invited lots of people. You're the one I wasn't sure would come." That sounds rude. It's observational. I stayed until closing, helped move a table, and met her protective sister, Mara. Near closing time, Claire walked me to the door. "Thank you," she said. "For moving a table? For showing up somewhere Grant has nothing to do with." I looked at her. "I wanted to see what yours looked like." Her eyes softened. "Ethan." There was something in the way she said my name that made me want to step closer. I did not. She was still legally married. The separation paperwork was moving, but slowly. We both knew the line. So I lifted my cup and said, "Needs more buckets." She laughed so hard she had to look away. That was enough. 2 weeks later, everything got worse. Grant called an emergency leadership meeting on a Thursday morning. HR, the general counsel, and 2 vice presidents were waiting. Grant slid a photograph across the table showing Claire and me outside her studio, standing close and smiling. Nothing inappropriate had happened, but the frozen moment looked intimate. "I received this from someone concerned about a potential conflict involving a senior employee and my family," Grant said. "Given your access to company planning and Claire's legal dispute with me, this raises questions. There is no personal relationship." "Then why are you attending her business events?" "Because she invited me." "Why?" "That's not a corporate compliance question." HR finally spoke. "Ethan, we're trying to establish whether confidential information has been shared." "No." "Have you discussed company financials with Mrs. Holloway?" "No." "Have you discussed Mr. Holloway's business decisions?" I almost laughed. "He is my boss. Of course I have discussed some of his business decisions in general conversation." Grant's face tightened. The lawyer asked whether I had begun speaking to Claire before or after the separation. "After." Grant looked at me sharply. HR did too. That was when I realized he had never told them they were separated. He wanted the suspicion without the timeline, making me look like the employee who got involved with the boss's wife, while hiding that the marriage had already broken apart. "I think we should all be very precise," I said. Grant looked at me, I continued. At the anniversary party, Grant instructed me to monitor Claire's movements and report who she spoke to. I refused to continue doing that after she left the ballroom. Later, I learned they had already been separated for 11 weeks. The HR director's expression changed. Grant's voice dropped. That instruction had a security context. No, it didn't. You don't know the full context. Then explain it. Silence. For once, Grant did not have a room arranged in his favor. The general counsel asked me to forward any relevant messages or notes. I had none from Grant because his instruction at the party had been verbal. But I did have one thing. The text I had sent myself that night after getting home. I sometimes did that after difficult events, short notes so I could remember operational details the next morning. 12:42 a.m. Grant told me to watch C, report if she left or spoke to Porter Group. C left before speech. G angry. Discuss Monday. It was not proof by itself. But it was contemporaneous. I forwarded it. The meeting ended with HR saying they would review the situation. Grant asked me to stay. I did not. I walked out with everyone else. By lunch, Claire had heard. She called me, voice tight. I'm so sorry, I'm not. Ethan, this could damage your career. He was already damaging it. Because you met me. No. Because I stopped doing exactly what he wanted. Claire went quiet. Then she said the thing I had been afraid she would say. We should stop seeing each other. My chest tightened. Claire, I mean it. Until the divorce is final. Until your job situation is settled. This is giving him ammunition. He will find ammunition whether we speak or not. Maybe. But I won't hand him more. I understood her logic. I hated it anyway. Is that the only reason? I asked. A long silence followed. No, she said finally. I waited. Her voice became quieter. The other reason is that I'm starting to care about you in a way that is not careful. Every thought in my head stopped. Claire took a shaky breath. And I don't trust myself to build something healthy while I'm still fighting to get out of something unhealthy. I closed my eyes. That may be the most frustrating, responsible thing anyone has ever said to me. She laughed once, but I could hear tears under it. I learned from the king of efficient loneliness. That was one conversation. It was memorable. I wanted to tell her I cared about her too. Instead, I said, okay. Because if I meant anything I had said about not controlling her, then I had to respect the choice even when it hurt me. We stopped contacting each other. January was miserable. I worked, I went home. I ran 3 miles most evenings because physical exhaustion was easier than thinking. Grant and I spoke only when necessary. The internal review expanded. A driver admitted Grant had asked to be notified when Claire used company cars, and an assistant had been told to flag contact from her old business associates. It was not dramatic surveillance. It was a pattern of using company resources to control a private relationship. The board was embarrassed. Grant remained CEO, but he was removed from several personnel decisions while new boundaries were put in place. My promotion never came. In February, HR offered me a different role instead. Director of Operations, same salary increase, but reporting to the Chief Operating Officer rather than Grant. 6 months earlier, I would have accepted immediately. Instead, I realized I had spent years measuring my life with titles Grant controlled. I called an old vendor, Marcus Bell, who ran a smaller event logistics firm. 3 conversations later, I had an offer with less prestige and far more freedom. I resigned from Holloway Hospitality on a Friday. Grant called me into his office one last time. "You're leaving because of Claire," he said. It was not a question. No, he looked unconvinced. I'm leaving because I finally noticed how often I make choices based on what I'm afraid to lose. Grant's expression hardened. That sounds like something she would say. Maybe I was ready to hear it. He stood and walked to the window. You think she's different with you? I felt anger rise, but I kept my voice even. This isn't about whether Claire chooses me. He turned. That's where you're wrong. No. That's where you are. For the first time, I understood that Grant saw every relationship as a structure of leverage. If Claire left him, someone must have taken her. If I left the company, someone must have influenced me. The idea that people could choose a life for themselves seemed almost insulting to him. I picked up the resignation folder from his desk. Goodbye, Grant. He did not answer. I started my new job in March. I did not contact Claire. That surprised even me. I thought about her constantly, but I had promised to respect the space she asked for. I also needed to know I could build a new life without waiting for her to reward me for doing it. Spring came. My new office was above a warehouse and had terrible coffee, but people laughed in meetings, and disagreement was not treated like betrayal. I had forgotten work could feel like that. In May, a cream-colored envelope arrived at my apartment. Inside was a small card. Divorce finalized today. No celebration yet. Just wanted you to know the chapter is actually closed. Claire had signed only her first name. I sat at my kitchen table for 10 minutes, staring at it. Then I texted the number I still knew by memory. Congratulations feels like the wrong word. Her reply came 5 minutes later. It is. Try. Welcome back to your own life. I smiled. So I wrote, Welcome back to your own life. 3 dots appeared. Then, coffee? We met the next morning at the same bakery where we had first agreed to be careful friends. Claire was already there. She stood when I walked in, and for a moment neither of us knew what to do. A handshake would have been ridiculous. A hug felt dangerous only because we both wanted it. She solved the problem by stepping forward and wrapping her arms around me. I held her gently. It lasted maybe 3 seconds. It changed everything. When we sat down, I noticed she looked different. Not more beautiful, more settled. Her hair was shorter. She wore no wedding ring, of course, but I had seen her without it before. The real difference was in her attention. She was not checking the door, not measuring the room. How's the studio? I asked. Busy. Terrifying. Mine. How many buckets? 43. Now I'm impressed. She laughed. Then she asked about my new job. I told her the truth, that leaving Holloway had scared me, that I had spent the first week wondering whether I had ruined my career, and that by the 3rd week I realized I could breathe differently when no one was using ambition as a leash. Claire looked at me quietly. I missed you, she said. No games, no dramatic pause. Just truth. I missed you too. Her eyes dropped to the table. I need to ask something before this goes any further. Okay. Do you know why I kept watching you that night? At the party? She nodded. You told me. You were deciding if I would tell the truth. That was part of it. I waited. Claire smiled, embarrassed now in a way I had never seen before. The first time I noticed you was before Grant spoke to you. You were helping one of the servers fix a broken tray stand near the kitchen doors. I remember. You were in a suit, kneeling on the floor with a screwdriver while everyone else was trying to get photographed. That is a very flattering memory. It is to me. I stopped smiling. Claire held my eyes. I watched you because I was trying to understand why the sight of one normal, decent man doing something without needing credit made me feel so emotional. My chest tightened. Then Grant spoke to you, she continued, and I watched your face. I knew what he had probably asked. After that, yes, I was testing whether I could trust you. But before that? She looked down and laughed softly at herself. Before that, I just liked looking at you. I felt heat rise into my face like I was 16. That would have been useful information 5 months ago. No, it wouldn't. I knew she was right. 5 months earlier, attraction would have complicated everything. Now it could simply be true. I leaned back in my chair. So what happens now? Claire looked at me carefully. Now I would like to go on a date with you. A real one? Yes. No lawyers involved? Preferably none. No corporate compliance? Absolutely not. I smiled. I'd like that. Our first date was a quiet Italian dinner where I knocked over a water glass, and Claire admitted she had ordered the wrong pasta because she was nervous. We laughed, talked about things that had nothing to do with Grant, and began dating slowly. Not because we lacked feeling, but because neither of us wanted fear to rush another decision. We still had difficult moments. Claire apologized too much for ordinary choices. I escaped conflict by turning feelings into logistics. Once, after I suggested a shared calendar during an emotional conversation, she said, "Ethan, I am not a vendor. I learned to stay in the room," and she learned that disagreement did not automatically become punishment. We were not magically healing each other. We were practicing healthier choices beside each other. By the following winter, Second Light Studio had grown enough for Claire to hire 2 part-time designers. Marcus's company promoted me to oversee regional operations. I bought a small house on the east side. Not the large place I once imagined buying after Grant's promotion, but a brick bungalow with a crooked porch and a kitchen window facing a maple tree. Claire helped me choose plants for the front steps. I killed 2 of them. She replaced them with tougher ones and told me some things were better matched to the conditions they actually lived in. I accused her of making a relationship metaphor out of shrubbery. She said I was finally learning. A year after the company party, Claire hosted an anniversary open house for her studio. I arrived late because one of our trucks had broken down outside Murfreesboro. The room was crowded with clients, friends, neighbors, and people holding flowers they had no idea how to arrange. Claire stood near the back, in a green dress, talking to Mara. Then she saw me, and she watched me walk across the room. The memory hit so clearly that I stopped halfway there. Claire raised an eyebrow. "What?" she asked when I reached her. I looked around the studio. "1 year ago, your husband told me to watch you at a party." Her expression softened. Ex-husband. Important correction. "Very. And the whole time you were watching me." Claire smiled. I was. I slipped my hand into hers. So who's watching who now?" She leaned closer, her shoulder touching mine. "No one, because they were told to." That answer was the whole story. Claire chose to leave a life that had become too small for her. I chose to stop confusing obedience with security. Grant had asked me to watch his wife because he believed attention was control. Claire had watched me because she was looking for proof that people could choose something else. And I had spent years watching my own life from a safe distance. By then, the greater risk was living so carefully that no real life could reach me. Claire squeezed my hand as another group of guests came through the studio door. She started to pull away to greet them, then turned back. "Stay after?" she asked. "I can help clean." That was not what I meant. I smiled. I know. Her eyes held mine for the same extra second they had across the ballroom 1 year earlier. Only now there was no husband across the room, no assignment in my ear, no job hanging over the moment, no secret separation hidden behind a company story. Just choice. I'll stay, I said. Claire smiled and walked toward her guests. And yes, I watched her, but this time, nobody had to tell me to. If you've ever had to choose between the life that looked secure and the life that actually felt honest, tell me which one you chose. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe and come back for the next one. Because sometimes the moment that changes everything begins with realizing whose rules you've been living by.